Welcome to Managing Life 101, where if you don't manage life, it is going to manage you. I'm Susan.
I'm Jim.
It's good to be back with you guys again today. What are we talking about today?
Having an addict in the family.
Oh.
Which can be drug addict, alky. Yeah.
Codependent.
You get the idea.
Yeah. Okay, this is interesting because with Jim and I both being recovering alcoholics, if you are for the first time watching our podcast, we each are recovering alcoholics, and I'm 35 years sober. Jim is 38 years sober. And we are living a great life today, but that was not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
And each of us has a different story of our family and what propelled us into recovery. What we have found, though, is it's really hard to run into almost anybody that doesn't have some type of addiction somewhere in their family.
True.
Either themselves, their family member, their parent, their brother, their sister, their husband, their wife, whatever. It's really, really a prevalent thing. And it's something that's not always talked about a lot.
That's true.
So we actually want to bring it as one of our topics today, and that's what we're going to talk about. And would you like to start us off, Babe?
Sure. Okay, how do you deal with an addict in the family?
Yeah.
That's a big one. Let's just start with this. If you have alcoholism or addiction in the family tree, family history, then, and you and your husband are not addicted or alcoholic, the chances of your kids being an addict and an alcoholic are pretty big. So you need to educate them as soon as they understand English, that alcoholism runs in the family.
Yeah.
And you would do well just to never take that first drink.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, why is that? And you'll say, because it'll taste so good. It'll taste better and you'll feel better than you've ever felt.
Mm-hmm.
And therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
So forewarn your kids about alcoholism and addiction, especially if it's in the family tree.
Mm-hmm.
If you already have a child that is sneaking out, coming home hammered or obviously high, deal with it. Set up boundaries. And how do you set up boundaries? Well,
that's a good question. I was going to ask you that to explain that.
Here's how you set up boundaries, and I've spoken to many mothers, wives, you name it, of alcoholics, addicts.
Fathers, husbands.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Go to Al-Anon.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, why Al-Anon? It's not my problem. It is your problem. The kid, the husband, whoever it is making it your problem. And in the meantime, you dealing with them and their addiction, you have no life. Your life doesn't progress. You don't go through life growing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Each year should be getting better instead of worse. And with an addict and an alcoholic in the family, each year gets worse.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget this one lady said, well, sending me an Al-Anon, that doesn't help anything. And I said, you haven't even gone to your first meeting. Okay? I know, how do I know this? I know it firsthand. My dad was an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic drug addict. And my mom was constantly trying to keep the road smooth for Dad. And for me, she was always trying to just make excuses. I could manipulate Mom. I could manipulate her very well, even from the time I was a young boy. And therein lies the problem, because you shouldn't be able to manipulate your parent. Your parent needs to be a parent 24/7 until you leave the home. Mm-hmm. And then they can become your friend after you're out on your own. But I was always able to manipulate my mom until she went to Al-Anon. And then everything changed. I noticed that when I would come over to the parents' house, the lock on the front door is different. I don't have a key to that. The lock on the side gate actually works, and I can't get in the side gate in case I want to borrow tools, which I rarely returned. If I was going over there, I wanted something. Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing I noticed that was different. So then I tried to break in, And but the thing that left the biggest impression on me was when I would call my mom for something. It was never like, let's have lunch. How you doing? No, I want something. Mm-hmm. So she'd been going to Al-Anon. As soon as she'd hear my voice, she would hang up. Mm. And boy, that pissed me off. I mean, it was like, it didn't hurt me. It made me angry.
Right.
And I quickly saw that bridge was burned.
Yeah.
Between me and using mom. My bridge with dad was never really there anyway. So that was the same. But mom, that was a big deal. To lose mom in my corner, that I could always depend on her to give me something of whatever it was I wanted. And Al-Anon changed everything.
Yeah.
And she was in recovery. And I'll never forget when I was busted for smuggling drugs, and I'm in Canada, out of the country. That's where I was caught. And I either wrote or called home. And I'll never forget the first thing my mom sent me was the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, what the hell? I said, send me something useful, like Playboy magazine, or something like that. Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And it irritated me.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I took it down to the jailhouse library, and I put it on the shelf and left it there. And what's so interesting was there was an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that was going on inside the jail, and brought in by guys like me and Susan for the inmates. And I'll never forget this buddy of mine, Frank Greenaway, said, hey Jim, let's go to the AA meeting. And I said, Frank, I'm not an alcoholic. He said, Jim, they got coffee and donuts. And I said, well, maybe I am, so let's go check that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I cannot tell you one word that was said, but I will tell you that the kindness and kind of brotherly love of the guys that brought that meeting inside the jail made a huge impression on me. And it wasn't until I asked God's protection and care with complete abandon after I was in about 3 or 4 months, and found out that I was looking at a lot of time, 7 years minimum to life.
Wow.
And that's when I asked God's protection and care with complete abandon. And from that point forward, I'm going to chapel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, if there's a meeting, I'm going to it.
Yeah.
And that started my road to recovery, which still to this day is in effect. Almost, it'll be 39 years this August. But
next month.
Yeah, next month, August 19th.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, having an addict in the family, if you just gloss it over and you don't deal with it, you'll end up raising their kids.
Yeah.
you'll end up financing their lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be the one bailing them out of jail.
Yes.
You know, and you shouldn't have to live life like that.
Yeah.
You know, Al-Anon teaches you to have boundaries. It teaches you that your life has value too.
Right.
And you keep sticking your fingers in the hole of the dam that's leaking water of the addict does
Alcoholic.
nothing
Yeah.
except prolong your misery. And I've said to mothers especially, I said, you know, but the mother will say, but he'll be on the streets, you know, if I don't let him sleep in the garage, and he'll starve if I don't give him food, you know. And I said, you are loving them to death.
Yeah.
Because that's just one less thing that they have to worry about, one less thing that they have to be accountable for.
Right.
And all they have to be accountable for is like begging, borrowing, and stealing enough money to get their dope for the day.
Right.
Because they know that mom is going to give them a place to sleep and food to eat.
Yeah.
And I said, you will love them to death. And you don't want to do that.
Right.
The sooner you can make them entirely accountable and responsible for their choices, the closer you are to their recovery, and yours especially.
Yeah.
They may never recover. They may die. That's just a fact. But in the meantime, you will have done everything that you can to not aid in them killing themselves.
Yes.
Because at some point, it's not about partying. It's not about being with the peeps. You're killing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't want to be a part of that.
Right.
You know, you want to be part of the solution.
Right.
And that's one question I often ask the partner, whoever it is, of the addict or alcoholic. I said, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? And I'll say, describe to me what your daily life looks like. And before 5 minutes are up, I'll just say, stop talking. You are part of the problem. You are facilitating their addiction and whatever, alcoholism, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And some people eat themselves to death too.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen people come into the program very much overweight and addicted to alcohol and drugs, and then lose weight once they get into recovery. And I've also seen people come in rail thin, anorexic, and addicted, and then put on weight, normal weight, and look good again.
Yeah.
You know, the whole spectrum is there. But recovery is the goal.
Yes.
Recovery.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of information, which is really good.
Yeah.
Because now we can kind of dig into that. One thing I wanted to talk about was, you know, when you talked about your mom, and I know that that's the goal, is for everyone to have a healthy life, and that's what Al-Anon will help the individual that loves the alcoholic / drug addict create a life and really enable the alcoholic / addict to create a life too. But somebody has to take that stand. So it made you mad when you called your mom and she hung up on you. It hurt her.
Very much.
It was so hard. It is so hard for the individual that is putting the boundaries in place, that is saying that, oh, this is not how it's going to be anymore. That is not something easy. You know, we can talk about this because this has been our life for so many years.
True. I've never seen anyone love somebody into recovery.
Well, I haven't either.
Never.
I mean,
so remember that.
Love them in the way that we're talking about. Love them in the way that you're not giving them any boundaries. Love them in the way that you're consistently doing everything for them. That just doesn't work. It's the different type of love. that you're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's sick love.
Right.
To give them
other
everything
stuff.
they want.
But it's good to distinguish,
Healthy love
healthy love.
is establishing the boundaries and sticking to them.
Right.
From the beginning.
Yes.
You know?
It's hard to find, but Al-Anon is definitely that. And say you yourself, like for example, you and I are both in recovery. When we met though, we were already in recovery. Jim was 8 years sober, I was 5 years sober. So we already were committed to working our own program, to creating a different life than we had been living, which was really good. And actually, when you first go into the program, they really recommend you don't make any major life decisions at all, other than the decision to get sober in the first year, because you're not really thinking clearly, you know what you're doing. But there's Jim's story is an extreme, which is not uncommon. It's not uncommon for people to have this extreme stories in order for them to get sober and to, start to live a life in recovery. That is something that I think is really important to know, because it seems that the older we get, the more we run into people that do have this problem with their children or with their mate. So that is really good to talk about that. Now, when I got sober, which we'll go into more detail because we're going to make this a couple podcasts that we're going to talk about this.
Couple hundred.
Really? I mean, recovery is just,
way,
it's just, you can't do it in one thing, But what we want to do is we want to bring this to the forefront. We want to be able to say, this is a place where we can talk about this. And this is how we can help you. Our goal is to provide our listeners, watchers, friends, neighbors, with tools, skills, techniques, and strategies that help you manage your life. They have a great thing they say whenever you're taking an airplane flight. They say, okay, everybody's buckled in and the flight attendant. Of course, now they might even just doing it via video. The message is still the same. If for some reason there is a drop in pressure within the cabin, the little oxygen masks will fall down. Put on your oxygen mask. They show you how to do it. And they always say, if you are traveling with a child, please make sure you put on your oxygen mask first and then be able to put your child's on. I just think that's such a great analogy for helping people in recovery that you love, that you're married to, that are part of your family in some way, that are your friends. Because first of all, you must learn how to take care of your own life and have boundaries and a healthy way of living your life. To me, that's godly. To you, that's godly. And to everyone we seem to run into that has a fabulous life, it's godly. And even in the New Testament, God tells us, Jesus tells us, the number one commandment is to love your God with all your heart, body, soul. Number two is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So, loving yourself really means, what are you doing to take care of this wonderful vessel that God has provided you?
Sure.
And the life that He has born you to have, literally. So that is something, that's where we get off track. So we're going to address how you do that in some of our upcoming podcasts. The main thing is that addiction is a nasty, horrid, disgusting, vicious disease. And it will destroy you, and it will destroy the people you love if you do not make changes. That's the biggest deal. Is learning how to make changes. It's kind of a serious one today. Because this is serious. It's serious life.
Whenever I start working with anybody in any sort of sponsorship way, I always say, are you teachable?
Yes.
And, because you have to be. You have to do things different. quite often everything
Yes.
different.
Yes.
And you have to be open to that and not defensive and not cherry pick on, well, I can do that, but I'm not going to do this.
Right.
Well, I'll do that, but I'm not going to go that far.
Right.
Wrong.
Right.
Whoever's telling you this, if it's me or somebody else, we know.
Yes. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know firsthand, and I also know from experience.
Right.
Do what you're told,
Yeah.
which could be the whole problem with your kid or your spouse or whoever it is. They've never done what they've been told,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
or only done it partially. That's a problem,
Yeah.
especially when you're told by people who know.
Yeah.
You know, imitate a winner
Yes.
right out of
Let's
Think and Grow Rich.
let's wrap it up with that one because that's so good.
Sure. Go ahead.
Imitate a winner.
Yeah.
Imitate a winner. Find someone that has a life like you want and find out what they do. What did they do to get that great life?
Mm-hmm.
And if you know someone that's in recovery and is having a great life and you happen to be dealing with a family member that needs recovery, go to that other person and say, what do you do to have a great life?
Mm-hmm.
And then be open to what they have to say.
And do what they tell you
And
to do.
do what they tell you to do. So surrender, be open, be willing to change, and be teachable. And let's wrap it up with those things because those are great things no matter what's going on.
Then you got to take
Yeah.
action.
Then, take action. We'll talk about taking action. Okay, so we want to say thank you so much for listening to us today. And remember, it's Managing Life 101, where if you don't manage your life, it is going to manage you. Bye-bye.
Bye.